unhappy because they give a lot of relief. Then things never get resolved there because everybody's traveling higher. They go up to the High Court. And of course, only substantial questions of law. But revenue has a way of making everything into a substantial question of law. And so do the companies. If they want to go, then they'll make any and everything a substantial question of law. And finally, the Supreme Court. So if you see, the dispute resolution timeline is 15 years plus, which is giving you a conservative estimate. You have a map option which is sitting somewhere there, but then it's neither here nor there because judging by whatever you read in the newspapers, it hasn't been hugely successful. So with this is a slide which will tell you in a snapshot where you are the moment you file your return in the tax department. Because it may quite be the case that your own case may not have been adjusted previously, but there would be some other cases which had been adjusted on similar issues, and your case will face the similar adjustment. So it's not that the officer will say that, okay, so you had a clean chit, so I need to continue giving you a clean chit. No. Just as someone comes up on the horizon and say, well, in this case, I did this, and the issues are similar, internal instructions go down that please follow, because it favors revenue. So you are on the side of revenue, and you tend to follow you have a herd mentality, you're made to have that herd mentality to follow what everyone does. So this is the scene here. Now coming to one of the supposedly popular dispute resolution mechanisms, which is the mutual agreement procedures. Now they are an alternate mechanism which come from the tax treaties, and they can continue side by side with your domestic resolution options as well. So you might have a CIT appeals, you might have a tribunal going on, but you're going to go ahead and file with a map, and you must have been educated around the map a few days back on what it is. So I won't dwell on the legal aspects or the theoretical aspects of it. I would like to give you a practical perspective. But just before that, it requires the intervention of competent authorities. So what are competent authorities? Let's not dwell on the merits of the word competent, but what are competent authorities? They are authorities designated by all countries who are especially going to be looking into the bilateral aspect of treaties and helping multinationals resolve their issues which have emanated from an action of a treaty country. For example, if India adjusted you and your company doesn't like that, it has the other options to go to CIT, DRT, wherever. But within 3 years of the notice of adjustment or the assessment order, you can file a mutual agreement procedure. And your foreign enterprise, who is perhaps affected by it, can go ahead with it as well. So this is what is happening where you start with the agreement procedures, and this is the way it works. You make a map request. The taxpayer makes the map application in prescribed form of the home country. You can be made where there is a double taxation or a taxation inconsistent with treaty. So you read out the treaty and you find that you should be taxed up in a certain way, but you're not being taxed like that. So you go and make a map request. It lies at the door of the competent authorities to accept it or call from the additional information from the taxpayer to accept it. Then the host country or CA is called upon to see whether they can talk about it or they can come to terms. And then there are representations from the taxpayer's side, but one thing you may keep in mind is that the taxpayer never faces the competent authority directly. They face their own competent authority, and in India you would face your own competent authority, but you would not be facing both the competent authorities together to be arguing before them. Because at the end of the day, both the competent authorities meet to decide for you. They would have taken inputs from you in their respective countries, but you would not end up meeting them both together. They are sovereign nations. They can decide in the interest of larger industry issues or general investment climate issues and come to whatever terms. But at the end of the day, no matter what MAP does or does not do, it does not have precedent value if you don't want it to happen. For example, if in your case you had a MAP settlement at a certain number, and you may not like that number, you can reject it. Even if you have accepted it, it doesn't mean that all the years down the line have to be adjusted similarly, or you can hope for the same number. On the other hand, you can go back to the litigation authorities or to the tribunal or anywhere and say, well, this is acceptable to you, and it should be applied in the other years as well. So all this is very informal, and this is within your discretion. But technically, legally, it does not have a precedent value in the eyes of law. So please be careful when authorities come down to you and say that you've agreed so much in MAP, and so that's what you're going to do. You can technically challenge that, because it is not supposed to be coloring the attitude and the thoughts of the Indian authorities. So it takes about 2 to 3 years to complete, but I'm sorry, that is not the way it has worked. It has faced too many challenges, at least on the India-US corridor, where the percentages that India wants are not acceptable to US. What US wants is not acceptable to India. But again, one practical thing that I've seen on both sides, because I work closely with the US Competent Authority, who's the Commissioner IRS in US, because that's the highest authority in the US. Their commissioner is something like a CBDT chairperson, and in India the word commissioner is different. So I work closely with them, and I work closely here in India. One thing that I can impartially say, and this is just between this close group, that India has a lower cost base. In India, everything is cheaper, so you have a lower cost base. Obviously, the foreign entity has outsourced work to India because it is looking to cost savings. So it has a cost saving. Now, if India asks for a higher markup, let's say cost plus 15 or 16%, and why can it ask for a higher markup? Because your benchmarking studies, your comparables are looking like those numbers. Even if you give working capital adjustments, even if you give risk adjustment. Now, risk adjustment is something which one needs to press for, because Indian captive service providers are not taking the same risks that entrepreneurs would do. So it is up to you to press it correctly. And when I say correctly, means you need to have a calculation around it. Because as a revenue authority, my biggest problem was that when companies kept on asking, and the big fours and the not so big fours, that we are captives, so we want adjustments. Okay, so you want an adjustment. So what adjustment do you want? So we want a working capital adjustment, because they write those famous lines in their transfer pricing study, we reserve the right to take adjustments. Okay, so what adjustments? Working capital, fine. Give me a calculation. So a calculation is given. Next, not happy with the working capital, margins not going down. Want risk adjustment. Fair enough. Of course, you are a captive service provider. You don't take the risks that your foreign entity would have done, or your entrepreneurs do. So how do you calculate that risk adjustment? There is a blank. Now, whatever calculation you come up at the last moment and you don't have a structured strategy around it, let me inform you that the revenue will pick holes in it. Because you will have a lot of presumptions while coming out with that risk adjustment. And presumptions are something which revenue does not like. So if you want your risk adjustment to sail through, you need to have a strategy around it, because that's the only adjustment that revenue has shied away from giving to anyone, because they don't have a proper calculation. And I myself have not been able to give, because no matter how much anybody shouts force that we want a risk adjustment, revenue needs a calculation. And that calculation has to be foolproof. With these two adjustments, I can guarantee you will have a very good margin, which is reasonably looking like something which US would be acceptable to. But nobody's done it. So India is looking like those horrific margins which begin from 28 and come down to 27. That's the little bandwidth they play around. Or 30 and come down to 29.5. But that is not acceptable elsewhere. But at the end of the day, whatever the high markups that India takes, cost plus 16, 17, 18%, and you take the same cost in US, or the US cost, and do a cost plus 5%, you will find that if you convert this into an hourly rate, the Indian side is still charging lower than what is being charged in US at the hourly rate. So if you have a cost plus 15 in India, and it looks like $10 an hour in India, then on the same lesser markup of cost plus 5 in US, the hourly rate would be $100. That is the difference. So, as a former revenue authority, I tried to explain this to the US IRS, that at the end of the day, still no matter what high markups you're looking in India, it still translates into a lower hourly average rate than in US, but then this conversation is just happening, we don't know how it will pan out. That's the true story of it. That India does give huge cost savings to the US counterparts. Now, MAP didn't work very well, wasn't working very well, because the US Competent Authority never liked what India did and vice versa. And because US and India are two huge treaty trade partners, the world over, all competent authorities became wary of what India was doing. So nobody really tried to push the program. So that's on the hold, and nobody's going anywhere. So in the meantime, government came up with a safe harbor. Now this is something which is causing a huge consternation amongst everyone. Is it safe? Number one. Is it a harbor at all? Number two. And is it another way to harass somebody who's already dead and flog a dead horse? Or what the hell is it? Or is it something which has just been put into place because the act said it is going to come in soon and it never came for so many years? Just put anything in place, whatever it looks like it. The margins are horrific. In the safe harbor, they say, we're going to take you for a cost plus 20 or 22. Fine. There's a lot of rationality in the number. At least you've come down from your 40 to 20. The other part is, we're going to judge whether you're eligible for safe harbor.